with the
Yes.
share? All right, excellent. All right, welcome. Thank you all. So this will be my presentation on my discovery of the dark sky. I'm pretty new to astronomy, and I'll go through my background here in a second. But this is something I put together for an organization I was with and enhanced it for this group. When I started, pretty much for me, I work full time in emergency services as a registered nurse. My away from work hobbies are archaeology and now astronomy. I'm a member of several groups, including the West Valley Astronomy Club, and vice president of both Friends of Agua Fria National Monument and the International Dark Sky Association Phoenix chapter. Until recently, this is what I used to use to explore the sky. Little did I know something more was on the horizon. I love this quote because for me, one thing led to another, and with no certainty of where it was going to be taking me. But once I saw the dark sky for all its beauty, I can only dream about the endless possibilities. I was a busy nurse, needing a way to cope with stress. I loved the outdoors and enjoyed exploring, so I began hiking. While hiking, I would see amazing archaeological artifacts, ruins, petroglyphs, pictographs. I wanted to learn more about them, so I joined a local archaeology group, the Friends of Agua Fria National Monument, and eventually became a board member. At the end of every board meeting, there was a request from someone to take lead on the Dark Sky Park project. So after 6 months of no one stepping up to take this project, I decided, why not? I like the night sky. Unfortunately, I knew nothing about the dark sky and its connection with a term called light pollution. Then I learned dark sky parks, well, they're required also to do outreach. So now I needed to learn astronomy too. And this begins our discovery of the dark sky. It seems redundant to call the night sky a dark sky, doesn't it? Well, at first, I thought so, but quickly learned why there's a difference. My first action was to learn what makes them so different. That's when I learned about a new term, light pollution. Globe at Night is arguably the best resource on the internet to learn about light pollution. So, what is light pollution? Light pollution is often described or defined in many ways, using terms such as inappropriate, disruptive, unintended, excessive, misdirected, obtrusive, invasive, unwanted, or misuse of artificial. Artificial light isn't always a bad thing. When used correctly for its actual purpose, it can be extremely useful. However, when using artificial light, we should always ask ourselves, why do we need the artificial light? In this picture, maybe it was to brighten the path of this yard. Okay, seems to accomplish the job, right? But what else did it do? Well, looking from the picture, it also casts light through the entire yard, the fence, onto the trees, and into the sky. This is an example of light trespass. The light did more than its intended purpose. So, what would be a better way to use artificial light in this picture? First, we could choose a color of light that limits light pollution. In the picture, the warm orange glow was likely okay, not of a blue or white color, which can negatively affect the environment. An example would be like blue light from your phone screen, which has been shown to inhibit sleep patterns. When discussing color, it's best to also address color temperature, which is measured in Kelvin. Anything under 3000 Kelvin limits the effects of light pollution. Second, we should dim the light so it wouldn't be so bright, or use a motion sensor so it would go on only when we really need it. Constant artificial light impacts so many things, including tree growth and wildlife. Third, we could shield the light so it would only shine where it is needed, like on that path, not in our neighbor's yard or not into the night sky. Using light responsibly is the best way to mitigate light pollution. The second form of light pollution is light glare. Light glare has been shown to be a major contributing cause of traffic accidents, whether from a brightly lit billboard at night or someone driving with their high beams on. Light glare impairs our vision to see in the dark. The next form of light pollution is light clutter. Light clutter happens when we excessively use artificial light. This often happens in urban environments where everyone wants to place a light to bring attention to something. Often using light excessively becomes counterproductive. In one study based out of Chicago, alley lights were placed closely together in an effort to prevent crime. What happened was crime actually went up, and it was found that the overuse made it harder for victims to see and even created pockets of shadows, giving opportunity for criminals to be more successive. Are the slides moving pretty good? Are you guys able to see the slides go through?
Yes.
Okay, just want to be sure before I go too far. I took this photo for a project I was working on. Notice that on the left, light clutter actually prevents anyone from reading the signs. Light glare makes the property difficult to see what's going on in the picture. Light trespass casts light onto the store, the street, and even the sky. Now look at the use of light. It's bright, white, and unshielded. Let's glance down to the left, to the right. The right picture, the color is low Kelvin, dim, creates less glare. It's shielded, kept only under the canopy, has no light trespass that goes into the night sky, and you actually can easily see the property. There's less light clutter, making it possible to read the distant signs, and the visibility of the property is completely much clearer. This is a great example of how understanding the use of artificial light can limit light pollution. The photo on the right also consumes less energy, is more economical to run. Most of all, no light was casted in the light sky on the picture on the right, which is our major final cause of light pollution called sky glow. The fourth and final form, being sky glow, is a result of all or just one of the previous forms of light pollution we just finished speaking about. Sky glow occurs whenever we use artificial light. However, if we are careful on how we choose to use artificial light, we can limit the amount of sky glow in the night sky. This is a sky glow map of over time. The dark areas have the least amount of sky glow or light pollution, which the orange-red to white areas are the most polluted. Notice as civilization moved westward through the years, so did light pollution. More alarming is that already populated areas worsened through time. Another issue is the use of harsh blue or whiter color lights, like we're seeing in many of these LEDs, versus the soft, warm colored light. So bigger and brighter is definitely not always better. This slide goes a little further into the many effects of blue or white light has on our bodies. So why all this fuss about light pollution? Light pollution affects things in so many ways, from disrupting wildlife migration and feeding habits to altering our personal health through disruptions of hormones like melatonin. It's a major waste of energy resources and overabundance of light that can cast shadows or glare and affects our safety at night. Light pollution disturbs our night heritage, preventing our ability to appreciate the night sky universe. A dark sky environment, in turn, provides us balance and benefits seen in this slide. Most importantly, unlike any other global environmental impactor, we can reverse this impact through the proper use of lighting in our daily lives. So we can turn to help create a dark sky environment. The International Dark Sky Association, otherwise known as IDA, is a leading resource to help mitigate light pollution. Their mission is to preserve and protect the night sky environment and the heritage of dark skies through our environmentally responsible outdoor lighting. They are not the police. They do, however, require applicants to follow the recommended guidelines to obtain and maintain certification. Hoping to get better on all this light pollution and dark sky stuff, I decided to become a member of the IDA and attend their annual general meeting and conference. I was impressed on the workshops and presentations they offered during that conference. The field trip at the final evening was a blast, especially when you're on the Wild Group tour bus, where I discovered something called PB&J, otherwise known as peanut butter liquor schnapps and wine. Our field trip was to tour the observatories on Mount Lemmon, provided by the University of Arizona. This included observing the Catalina Sky Survey, a NASA funded project supported by the Near Earth Object Observation Program known as NEO. During the night, we observed observations on the Schulman telescope and learned how I can do remote astrophotography from home using the same telescope, something I did and actually will talk about a little bit later. Now that I have a better understanding about the International Dark Sky Association, it was time to learn about some of their famous sky parks and communities. I took a trip to visit some of the darkest parks and communities in the nation: Grand Canyon, Zion, Natural Bridges National Monument, Capitol Reef, and Torrey, Utah. The Red Sands Hotel was actually a dark sky friendly hotel using only dark sky friendly lighting and even had an observation deck for its guests. And that was seen in the middle of that slide. Here in Arizona, there are many hotels jumping on the dark sky bandwagon. The newest one to open within the last 4 months is seen here in the slide. It's a boutique hotel by Marriott called Ardero, which is actually located in Fountain Hills. They offer frequent night sky events hosted by the Fountain Hills Dark Sky Association. After being a member for over a year, I got involved with the local chapter of IDA and eventually took a board position as vice president. The Phoenix area chapter has helped communities beyond the Phoenix metro area, including Fredonia, Arizona, Wickenburg, and and Gold Canyon. Our goal is to be the central resource for Arizona's dark sky places and communities. We participate in outreach events, community programs, and work with local groups on lighting ordinances. Here's a picture of myself and the IDA chapter president, Krista Sadler, on the Arizona Republic 12 News office for a podcast recording on light pollution in the Phoenix area. The study of learning about light pollution and ways to discuss it with the public was relatively simple. The IDA also requires dark sky applicants to not only talk about light pollution awareness, but host public education events about the dark sky and perform frequent dark sky quality assessments via sky observation, measurements, submission of area astrophotography for applicant certification. This was the real challenge: how to learn about astronomy, astrophotography, and hosting the dark sky event. Luckily, Arizona has a ton of resources, which I'll now share with you. There are numerous astronomy groups or clubs that often host night sky events, festivals, or participate at outreach events. This picture was from the Buckeye STEM Festival at their air show. There are several astronomy clubs surrounding the Phoenix metro area, but most conflicted at the time with my work schedule. Luckily, I learned about a new program starting up, which worked around my schedule and was able to become actually a founding member. Unfortunately, this program was recently phased out due to recent Phoenix City budget cuts. They hosted monthly classes on astronomy and offered numerous sky events. They even had a library on site. Once I got a grasp of Astronomy 101, it was time to visit local observatories and astronomy related programs throughout our state. Lowell Observatory was within a 1.5 hour distance and offers numerous on and off program lectures about astronomy. There are several programs on YouTube being offered right now through Lowell. My favorite series is called Cosmic Coffee, hosted by Jeff Hall, director of their observatory. The new Javali observation deck is also doing remote sky events currently available on YouTube during these recent COVID restrictions. Located about an hour east of Lowell is the Meteor Crater-Barringer Space Museum. This is a great place to learn just about anything related to meteors. The museum also has an Apollo 11 test capsule on site. The ASU Marston Theater is currently hosting frequent programs regarding astronomy. Currently, the programs are free, and you can sign up simply online. I'm constantly learning and discovering new aspects on all things astronomy through this program. I spent an entire day at Kitts Peak Observatory going through over a dozen different observatories and learning about how each one is actually unique from the other. During the evening session that I spent there, I observed the green flash along the horizon at sunset, and we talked about light accommodation. The night session, which was a VIP session, involved learning about the night sky and actual visual observations on their research telescopes. The staff at the visitor center are accommodating to all questions and offer great suggestions on where to go in between the different sessions throughout the day. Due to the vast array of telescopes being used at that site, vehicles are required to have headlamps actually dimmed out with these red reflectors. My interest to learn as much as possible led me to the most interesting discovery of all, the Richard F. Karras Mirror Lab, where I learned about how telescope mirrors were made. The Mirror Lab is tucked away under the east side bleachers of the University of Arizona Stadium in Tucson. This three-story mirror lab produces the optics of the world's largest telescopes ever assembled. This is the massive rotating oven used to create mirrors that are up to 8.4 meters in size. The mirrors are made out of O'Hara E6 low expansion porcelain glass. They are often polished with a deeply curved parabolic surface that yields much more shorter focal length than other conventional mirrors. The large binocular telescope mirrors were actually one of those mirrors made out in Tucson. I was fortunate enough to speak with one of the operators of this telescope. The Discovery Park is at the base of Mount Graham, and that's where the tours are held on site and are very limited. I love Mount Graham for its wondrous sky island environment and camping by Riggs Lake near the main observatories on top of the mountain. I participated in several online discussions and education topics offered by Amy Oliver, the public officer for the Smithsonian Whipple Observatory. The observatory is currently closed to all visitors, but they do host many things online. And if you're in the area, I highly recommend nearby Tupac and Tucumcari National Monument. Great places to visit when you're all the way out that way. Now it's time to share how I applied everything I've been learning. This was my first dark sky party at Badger Springs on the Agua Fria National Monument. Badger Springs provided the best access, which allows me to host events in either the main parking area, like what was shown here, or down to the trailhead, depending on the different road conditions. I even just developed a clear sky chart for this location. You never know what can happen during a night sky event. This is Juan Antonio, a local musician who happened to attend an evening at Badger Springs Trailhead with some of his friends and played us all a little music. So how dark are the skies at Agua Fria National Monument? This is a reading I observed one night with a Euhedron sky quality meter as shown, which is used to measure the quality of darkness in the sky. This actual reading was taken during a new moon and when the Milky Way wasn't visible overhead. The actual reading is off of Bloody Basin Road and Forest Road 14. Ideal sky readings are anything greater than 1.25 magnitudes per second. IDA requires dark sky places reach out to their surrounding communities. This event was at Phoenix College as part of their annual STEM event. Here I presented the Agua Fria Dark Sky Project poster presentation about light pollution and even hosted a lunar viewing session. This newfound journey opened more possibilities than I could imagine. I presented a stargazing event for the Scott Foundation, which provides support and training to teens transitioning out of foster care. The topic of the night was about the constellation Orion and how people view the night sky, including interpretation of images often seen on the moon. So during this past summer, and limited by COVID opportunities to travel, I decided to rent out the telescope for a remote astrophotography session and took my first ever deep sky images with their telescope and camera from the comfort of my own home. Prices vary on observing quality, anywhere from $120 to $400 for about a 3 to 0.5 hour session usually between the hours of 8 p.m. and 12 a.m. or 12:45 a.m. and 4 a.m. You have control remotely of the dome and the telescope. Images are monochromatic, but you can use a red, green, and blue filter and later stack those images to produce them in color. I chose not to do this because of limited ability of time and all the different things I wanted to see. I averaged the next several photos in about 30-second to 1 minute images, which after plotting, sleuthing, focusing, and processing for the camera took about 5 to 10 minutes per image. All your images are loaded into a Google Drive file that you get to keep. In order to see the images after your session, you have to first stretch each image, which whatever software program you choose. I did a free trial of PixInsight. There's a learning curve to the software, but it wasn't too bad. The images I took are all single, monochrome, and not even stacked that you're about to see next. Here are just a few of these images. I was able to do all these sessions just 2 days prior to the Bighorn fire coming up the mountain and almost consuming the observatory. So I consider myself pretty lucky on that. After getting a taste of this deep sky astrophotography, I decided to try landscape astrophotography. So I attended an astrophotography workshop at Lowell Observatory being sponsored by the Flagstaff Dark Sky Coalition, led by highly awarded astrophotographer Stan Honda. This was my first ever photograph of the Milky Way on the right. This is trying out the camera while looking for the comet Neowise over the at the Eagle Eye Road in just south of Aguila. This is some of the nightscape photography I was doing on the Agua Fria National Monument during a full moon. And this is a backyard shot with my old Celestron 8-inch SCT and a DSLR attached to it for the Orion Nebula. Here are some basic astrophotography tips. The ones on the left are mainly focusing on what to prepare for before you head out. And the ones on the right are how to adjust your imaging while you're on site. Key things to focus on is always bringing a tripod and an extra pair of batteries, and knowing if you have enough space on your digital card or bring more. Always look at what site appeals to you, and if you have time, always pre-focus your lenses during the day and tape them to the focus that you want. At night, make sure you have your autofocus off. Always shoot in manual mode. Most of the things you'll adjust are your ISO and shutter speeds. I always use a wide aperture lens when I'm doing Milky Way photography, and I shoot in RAW so I can adjust things later. The best way to make adjustments in the dark on site is to use a histogram for your camera. And if you need to focus things at night, you can actually use, in most cameras, your zoom and zoom on your image on the view screen and adjust your focus from there. I just wanted to share a little bit about my favorite topic, cultural astronomy, previously known as archaeoastronomy. This area blends my interest of the IDA night sky heritage, archaeology and culture, and the night sky. Cultural astronomy focuses on how people live in relation to the night sky. Constellation stories are often a common topic of cultural astronomy that people often relate to. Recently, I was a guest speaker on this topic for a monthly podcast called The Night Sky Tourist. One popular aspect of cultural astronomy, which I mentioned earlier, is the vast stories that are associated to certain patterns on objects called pareidolia. There are often common objects that we see on the moon, like the man on the moon or the rabbit. This is a picture of an ancient site in the Phoenix area. It is believed that the ancient Hohokam people used this site to study the movement of the night sky, possibly for agricultural or ceremonial uses. These are two different petroglyphs on the Agua Fria National Monument. Using modern day sky software like Stellarium seen here below, researchers believe the images could be possibly ancient writings describing the 1054 AD supernova that would have shined as bright as the moon for several weeks during that time. My hope moving forward is to engage more people about the night sky through citizen science and STEM learning opportunities. One goal is to develop a library telescope program for our area so that everyone can appreciate the night sky. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I'm open to answering any questions you may have. All right.